Every ship that crosses open water depends on something the passengers never notice. The keel runs the length of the hull, submerged and silent. It does nothing that looks like sailing, doesn't catch wind, doesn't steer. Pull it out and the first hard swell puts the ship on its side. People go through something similar. There's a point where you stop fighting the keel, not out of defeat, but because you finally see the thing holding you upright was never a cage but the ballast. The people who spend years trying to tear it out have confused the thing keeping them afloat with the thing keeping them under. Jung wrote about authenticity as if it were freedom. Easy to say from where he was standing. By the time he wrote it, he had a finished career, a stable income, a place in the world nobody was taking from him. He'd already been understood and already accepted. Losing his footing at that point would have cost him almost nothing, as it's easy to recommend tearing out the keel when you're standing on the dock and not the deck. What looks like a lie is closer to translation. The mask takes what's happening inside you and puts it into a form other people can actually receive. That's not weakness. It's a kind of intelligence the self-help world doesn't like to admit exists. Other people cannot handle your full complexity. Not because they're cruel, because they're human, with their own defenses and their own limits. Show someone your shadow, and you haven't freed yourself, you've given them something they cannot hold. The person who tells you to just be yourself cannot hold the shadow of what makes you, you. The moment you become fully yourself, people leave, people you love, people you need, people your life depends on in ordinary ways. Being true to yourself costs you things you value, and most people can't afford that price. They have needs. They have desires that don't stop. Radical honesty is a luxury reserved for people who've already arrived somewhere. For everyone else, the mask is how you get through the meantime. There's something dignified in a person who shows up anyway, who plays the part, who carries what other people project onto them, because the world doesn't owe them their own fulfillment. The parent who knows that being reliable matters more, most of the time, than being real. The friend who wears a mask well enough that people feel safe around it. Call that strength and unglamorous, but nobody writes songs about it. Jung talked about individuation like it was the highest thing a person could reach. He underestimated the cost, not to you, to the people who love you. Stop conforming and you stop being predictable. Stop being predictable and you start to look like a threat. Look like a threat and your relationships lose their footing. Not because the people around you are shallow. Human connection runs on a certain amount of stability, a certain amount of agreed upon fiction, a certain willingness not to look too closely at each other's flaws. A marriage that lasts 50 years doesn't last because both people were fully honest the entire time. It lasts because, early on and without ever saying it, both people agreed not to look too hard, to accept the version of each other that lets the arrangement keep working, to protect the story that holds the family together. Call it wisdom instead of deception. It might be the truest form of love there is, not seeing all of someone and choosing them anyway, but seeing enough and deciding not to ask for the rest. Most people chasing authenticity don't know what they're actually asking. A world where people can hear your truth without flinching and without judgment, where every relationship runs on total honesty. The version of you that has no gap between who you are in private and who you are with others. That world doesn't exist, and it can't, because the mind is built to compartmentalize our mannerisms and to always wear a different face in every room, to show people what they can carry and hide the true self. A building needs load-bearing walls you'll never see. So does a person. The scaffolding holding you up doesn't have to be visible to be real, and often the mask doesn't have to be false to be necessary. The version of you the world sees is still you, but edited, curated. Built to survive in a world that isn't always kind, and there is nothing shameful in that. Some unhappiness has nothing to do with wearing a mask. It comes from wearing it badly, from measuring the mask against some imagined real you that never gets revealed. Maybe the most meaningful life isn't the most honest one, but the most useful one. A life where you show up, carry other people's projections without resenting them for it. One that translates your own complexity into something they can understand, and love them not by exposing your truth, but by honoring theirs. For some people, leaving was never really a loss. The ones who walk once you stop performing were never attached to you. They were attached to the performance. Jung called the persona a mask that eventually had to come off. He was wrong. This isn't a mask to remove, but it's a skill to master. The difference between someone wrecked by their own complexity and someone who isn't has nothing to do with courage but judgment. Knowing when to speak and when to not. When to show your hand and to keep it hidden. When to be yourself entirely and to be whatever the room needs. Most people would call that hypocrisy, but maybe it's closer to compassion. There's a kind of love that lives in the gap between what you show others and what you try to hide. In your willingness to be misread, mislabeled, seen as something you aren't. Because the alternative is much worse, to kind of honesty that wrecks everything it touches and everyone it meets. A kind of freedom that leaves you alone in a room. An authenticity that's really just selfishness dressed up. The day you stop fighting the mask isn't the day you lose yourself. It's the day you find yourself. Not some buried authentic core waiting to be dug up, but the ability to hold several versions of yourself at once. One person in one room, someone slightly different in the next, and neither version fake. Both of them you. The you that's careful, the you that's strategic, the you that learned, a long time ago, that belonging is worth the trouble of hiding a little. Jung wrote about integrating the shadow. He didn't write much about what that integration costs. The relationships that don't survive it, the communities that pull back, the strange isolation of being fully seen by nobody because you showed everyone everything. Being comfortable with being misunderstood isn't growth. Often it's just loneliness, relabeled. People stop expecting to be understood and call it freedom. They stop trying to connect and call it enlightenment. What they're describing is being alone. They traded belonging for authenticity and call it growth. That trade isn't the only option. Maybe the point was never to become more authentic. Maybe it's to get better at translation. Wear the mask so well it stops feeling like one. You play the role so naturally that you forget you're playing it. Hiding your complexity not as a betrayal to yourself, but perhaps as a kindness to the people around you. What you show the world isn't a lesser version of you. It's a different one, just as real as the rest.